Hi everyone, Wrath here, and I want to talk about Nightmare Dungeons. And the main thing that I want to talk about Nightmare Dungeons and Escalations is because I have made a discovery. There are four types of dungeons. There's Nightmare Dungeons, which are type 0. There's Escalation Floor 1, Escalation Floor 2, and Escalation Floor 3. Everything that occurs is going to be weighted based on where you're at. So, easiest way to compare this is gem fragments, gem reserves, skull reserves, topaz reserves, any of those. If you run a gem reserve and you are on a regular nightmare dungeon, you are going to get bare bone gems. I have not recorded the gem reserves because they are grossly inferior to the regular gem reserves. The only advantage to gem reserves is that while they are incredibly lackluster, um, specific reserve gems, even with the escalation tree, are incredibly rare. So gem reserves is just a common way you can target farm gems in general while running nightmare dungeons. Now, gem reserves are probably hands down not going to compete with Sears Reach or any of the dungeons in the new zone. I think every dungeon in Scovos drops 3 royals with a chance for grand, and it just so happens that Sears Reach is just brain dead easy to run, and the rest are a little bit pega. But if you run a Skull Reserve or a Topaz Reserve in a Nightmare dungeon, you're only going to get 10k fragments per chest, give or take a variance of like 1k. If you get a specific gem reserve for an escalation for floor 1, you're going to get about 20k fragments per chest, give or take. And this is like a Skull Reserve or a Topaz Reserve. I'm not talking about the generic gem reserve. On floor 2 of an escalation, you're going to get 30k fragments from any of the chests that you open. And then on floor 3, you're going to get 40k fragments per chest with a variance of about 2,500. Now, those aren't the only things that scale. If you get Bad Omen is what I call a bad fix. Let me see if I have any of these in my inventory. Um, if you get Bad Omen, that guarantees, here you go. So if you run this dungeon, you're going to get a guaranteed X-Fall or Butcher. You are likely to get a second one, but you're not guaranteed. You may get a third, although the third one is incredibly rare. Um, and I think there's the Assassin bug from Helltides. He can also occasionally pop up, but he seems to die so much quicker than the other two. I almost never notice when he's around. If you kill any of these bosses that spawn from Dark Omen in a reserve of any type, they're going to rain a ridiculous amount of loot tied to whatever reserve you're running for the dungeon is. So if you find an Obol reserve in a regular Nightmare dungeon, it's not going to be a lot. If you find an Obol reserve on floor 3 of an escalation, you're going to be making, with if there's a Dark Omen, you're going to be making a minimum of like 3 trips to town. Guaranteed 2, probably 3, you might even get 4. And if the boss double respawns at the end of the dungeon, forget about it. It's going to be insane. So the number one way to farm obols, escalation, and taking obol reserve on later floors. Now, when I'm blasting with my friends, we have like an etiquette rule that I've created and implemented in order to keep the game flowing, because gambling can eat up a lot of time, and 2,500 obols is incredibly tough to spend when you only have so many loot slots. We frequently obol gamble when we're doing escalations, so that if we get to an obol level, we're completely empty of obols. Then we will only make a trip to town when we kill one of the Dark Omens, either Butcher, X-Fall, or the Assassin Bug. Then we come back and we keep going, and we don't make any more trips to town no matter what, unless we get another one. Then we pin it on the map, we make our next trip to town, and then we'll make one last trip to town at the boss room. Two, if the boss dies twice. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Oval Reserve. I personally will usually only make two trips to town because it's not. It's while it's a good way to target farm GAs and specific stuff, it's not the end all be all. And I kind of just want to get back to blasting. I don't mind it as like a side diversion, but I don't like when it eats up a lot of time and it just ruins the flow state. However, the last boss at the end of the dungeon, X-Ball, Butcher, Assassin Bug, they drop. They rain gold from the sky. They also rain gem fragments. And all of this scales with dungeon level. So if you're running a nightmare dungeon, you are getting a sliver the amount of resources you could be at. And if you're running an escalation dungeon and no one in your party goes down the middle of the tree to get this, you are acquiring a sliver of what you could be. Escalations aren't fun or worth it until you pick up the two extra portals. I don't know if they've fixed this bug or glitch, but the leader has to be in the boss room when it dies in order to spawn the extra portals. If the leader is not there, even if the person who does the kill has this talent, you will not get the extra portals. So bear that in mind. It's a really stupid bug, but it is what it is. But that frees up everyone else to not spec into any of this other stuff, unless you really want to get escalation sigils. Now, the advantage to the entire party being spec'd into escalation sigils is you don't waste the first floor. The floor one of an escalation is, even when it's a gold reserve or a skull reserve, um, it's it's doo doo. Um, it's nice to have the boss respawn twice. It's nice to get a collection of escalation sigils, especially since they can roll treasure breach or possibly mythic prankster. I've gotten one mythic prankster this season. I haven't seen it since. I have seen treasure breaches. I've crafted them. I've looted them. I've escalated into them, but they are rare. And I think Blizzard has hot fixed their how often they occur. But having members of your party spec into both sides of this tree, um, if you're specting the goblins and you're on hardcore, you have to take Altar of Avarice. Um, Risking terrible misfortune just is not worth it on hardcore. Whether it's a massive amount of damage or unavoidable death, it's hard to tell based on how Blizzard does stuff, but it's just not worth it. And the only thing you really care about are the goblins. Now, the game riches might be advantageous if you're gold finding, but the terrible misfortune, no thank you. So for a hardcore, you're going to go all the way over to Altar of Avarice. You're going to grab Greed is good, and then you're just going to go into Nemesis. And this is going to cause you to spawn a ton of elites. If you're gold finding and you get a Vile Opulence, you can just carry them with and get tons of gold out of it. Or if it's you just get a level with shrines, um, shrines now are super valuable. If doing shrines means you get tons of elites and you get to carry the elites and the bosses from shrine to shrine, and you get the stacks, you need to kill 20. Actually, I think this tooltip is wrong. I'm pretty sure it's 30. But you need to kill a ton of elites to spawn the altar, and then you click the altar and you get the goblin. The other main reason is that um, elites, butchers, and riches are not always that advantageous. I could be wrong about that, but controlling goblins, forcing goblins to drop, getting treasure breaches, um, uh, having a chance to spawn the goblin pathway, the path of coin, especially on T12. On lower torments, I don't really enjoy doing goblins. Maybe I'm so far progressed through the season I'm spoiled, but I just don't like doing goblins on T10. The loot feels super lackluster to what I experienced on T12. Um, so that is just what I've learned about dungeons. If you're running them, escalate. If you can control the escalations, if I have a choice of escalations, I gold find, I throw my gold find set, and I try and target gold reserve because um, even though that first floor of an escalation in gold reserve is not nearly as crazy as floor 2 or 3, it is still something and it's still very nice. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope this helped you out. I hope this answered some questions, and I hope this refines your ability to farm escalation dungeons efficiently. Thank you so much, and if you haven't, please subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. Cheers.